Hello. It's been a minute. Welcome to Office Hours 2021. I felt compelled to log in today after a extended conversation on EasyBot's Discord server concerning minimal techno. There is a compilation that we're working on, and I realized I have a lot of opinions about what minimal techno is, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to just let me turn down my volume. Thought it'd be kind of fun to, hello everyone. Thanks for the warm welcome. And everybody just was here too, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I thought it'd be kind of fun to just kind of go over and have my little soapbox to talk about what minimal techno is to me, which is obviously not the same as what it is to everyone else. I can't begin to imagine what that would be, but we can at least kind of break down how I define it, because it seems like I have a very prescriptive idea of what it is. So I'm going to adjust my levels again, and then we can get started. I should add that I didn't come in unprepared. I have sort of like an 8-track thing that I put together over the last few days. I was trying to think about what I wanted to do with this track for the compilation. And certainly things were starting to form in my mind, and then I was like, what's left is the sort of the processing of it. And I think I've found that these live streams are a really good way to process ideas and thoughts. So thank you for providing that for the last year. So what we're going to talk about today is the 8 tracks that I have here and sort of what I have set up. Starting with kick, I mentioned at EasyBot today that I feel like minimal techno starts with sort of a round kick. Now this kick is taken from White Label Select, which was on Sample Magic, I think, at one point, which is no longer an existing platform where you can download music. I believe they've migrated to Splice. I have it low passed here. If you have any questions about what this is, by the way, I have, in fact, made the video that explains everything about it, so you can go ahead and check that out. We are at 136 BPM, which is a little fast, but I've been listening to a lot of Blauon, so they tend to go pretty fast with their BPMs. This kick is also processed through this compressor, which is then processed through this analog heat, so it's not exactly dry. Following that, we have just like a kind of a simple hi-hat. And what I have here in track 3 is a hi-hat which has the release set to quite a short amount, but I also have a very minor LFO adjusting the pitch. Let me see if I can clear that up a little bit. There we go. It's adjusting the pitch ever so slightly. It's also adjusting the release on LFO 2. So if I was to adjust this depth a little bit more, you'd be able to hear it. You could even randomize it. Just to give you some variation. It doesn't really matter. And the thing about release is that if it's on free, it's the same as putting it on hold, because release is sort of one parameter at every time that you select it. Pitch has to be set to maybe hold, but with something this short, nobody's going to notice. Yeah, thanks everyone for the warm welcome. fun to be back. I think it was one of those things where you sort of take a break and then you could sort of end up taking a break forever, but I'm back. We'll see if I do it every week, but I'm thinking I'll do it every week. The next thing that I have is something a little bit more involved, which is a loop from one of my old performances. And I was talking to EasyBot today about like using just random samples and just distorting them until you can't really tell what they are, and this is kind of one example of that. Let's see if I can play it. Okay, so the reason this sounds so weird is because there's a distortion thing on it, but so what I ended up doing there with this, I'll play it by itself. But this is kind of one of the things that kind of got me excited about this track. Where is it? Hold on. You can't really tell until I start adding some more rhythms in there. What's nice about the distortion in the Octatrack is there's this whole third column here, which I don't fully understand what it actually does, but it sort of does this weird LFO-y kind of thing with the volume that eventually turns into some kind of distortion, or somebody can probably explain it better than me. But the faster it goes, the more it starts to sort of create additional frequencies. And so you can take something that's naturally very melodic or recognizable sonically, even just something that has something that's a little too recognizable, and you can throw on this distortion and it'll just add it kind of has this sort of resonate-y effect. But that's the sound of the kick. I'm not actually going to go into territory that makes it sound like a note because I have other things I want to add. Amplitude modulation, yes, thank you. Thank you, Matt. I should also add that one of my main role models in this project is Blawan, and if you want to check out any of his music, it's a really helpful blueprint for the kinds of ideas that I'm thinking about. I'll probably reference him a lot today. One other thing that you can't miss is the bass, and here I have my Minotaur, which I'll be using to just sort of create a longer line of something going on in the background. Let me know if the levels are all right from your end. Yeah, so the general idea here is to... Oh, shit. I realize that my levels are kind of high, but hey, Gleb, good to see you. Yeah, so one of the ideas that I'm sort of thinking about in creating minimal techno here is that you can sort of take a lot of distortion and figure out what you're going to do with it, and sometimes distortion can get in the way, I find. But it is fun to sort of have distortion take place after filter and sort of hear how sort of the tonal quality of something can adjust with those slight adjustments. And I'll demonstrate that with just track 5 here, which is our sort of like crunchy rhythmic sample we're working with. Sorry, I'll turn down this bass as well. So we have like quite a bit of distortion on it right now. You can kind of hear as I sweep across. You're kind of getting different things, and if you have a kick and hi-hats with it, it really shifts the way that the whole beat feels. Rustic. So yeah, like I find that when I listen to people like Richie Houghton or what's his name? Shit, I'm honestly not the right person to be referencing DJs all that much, but when I think about these techno DJs and when they talk about mixing techno, I think about this and how rich one loop can be, particularly with just a little bit of crunch to it. I can push the crunch on this as well. I mean, even if I didn't reach the high range for this percussion loop, I feel like the relationship between the kick and this sort of pulsing thing back here is really rich. And let me shorten the hi-hat a little bit more. And you can sort of hear me sculpting this hi-hat as well. Like, it really makes a difference if I give you just the high range versus one thing that I'll say about Blawan is that he doesn't seem to use distortion a ton, like in a very aggressive way. So in trying to sort of pay homage to him, I'm trying to keep my distortion usage to something a little more tasteful, so to speak. And another thing that I want to add in here is using an additional sample, and I'm just going to mute these for now. Using a sample that doesn't follow the same sort of like 4-bar, 1-bar, 2-bar, 3-bar, 4-bar type pattern. So here I have, in track 1, I've set up an 18-step pattern, and you don't want to go too crazy with it. You're looking more for something that just kind of takes little pieces and gives your ear something that's changing on a different timeline, because everything else is very predictable, very easy to listen to, very expectant. And then with this, actually, let me change this sample back to what it originally was. Let me explain what this is. I have a free LFO, which is choosing a different start slice point. At a speed that's quite slow, I can't really tell. But the depth of this is only, 8 slices across. So if I pick a different midpoint, I'm choosing where in the sample this is drawing from. So my minimum or my maximum level would be like 28. So I get like 9, 30, 31, 32 as the upper limit, and then 7, 6, 5, 24 on the lower limit. But in any case, the whole point of this is to just create something that's interacting with the rest of the beat on a longer timeline. I'm actually really enjoying the sound of this one note. It's like kind of resonating with the kick. It's almost like a G, I think. Let's see. G sharp. Glad you're enjoying this, Blair. Yes, the whole LFO slice technique is super helpful. Basically, your slice point can be modulated by LFO, with the midpoint being adjusted by the default parameter here. And with your depth being, like, say, 8 across, you're basically going 4 slices above, 4 slices below. And this whole thing will basically just modulate freely. And if you have something that's more, this is what makes the Octatrack so good at working with techno, is that you have some things that are very repetitive, like kick, hi-hat, loops, and then you also have something like this, which is unbound to that same sequence. Oh, I should also add that I have an LFO on the balance, so it's slowly kind of going left and right, just to give your ear a little bit more something to listen to. Yeah, like structurally speaking, you don't want to overcrowd the beat with things, and again, this is sort of like my recipe in my mind for how minimal techno is working. You have some things that are very repetitive, kick and hi-hat, which is tracks 3 and 6. You have a couple loops that sort of create a phrase that somebody can sort of like latch onto, like, or just something that kind of makes the kick more interesting. And you have this loop here, which is, I haven't talked about this one yet, but this is track 4, and it's kind of like a, let's hear what the original sounds like. This was one of the loops I made over one of my streams last year. I think it was on the OP1. But now, I'm honestly like a little bit wary of this because I think it starts to get into a bit more structural territory. Might be a little too memorable. But hopefully something like this at the top is generating something that, you know, it doesn't matter that it's not repeating because it's not really there for you to latch on to. It's more like something that makes you feel like you're listening to something different 30 seconds later. And what's fun about this is once I set it up, I may have talked about this in the past, but because it's relational to, because it's manipulating slice points, I can pretty much sub in anything else and just hear how it sounds and decide if I like that too. And the whole idea is that there's this sort of like, in my mind, I'm sort of envisioning this undulating kind of thing. Like if I'm not working with melodies, then what am I trying to create here? You could even do an LFO which adjusts the, adjusts the sample rate. You could set it to hold. So now every time we are at 135 BPM. Yeah, and like one other thing that I think about when I'm making this is, I mentioned this on the Discord earlier, EasyBot's Discord. I should just drop a link, but if somebody has it now, feel free to. We were talking about minimal techno production, and I was thinking about phasers and how, similar to this track 1 here, similar to track 1 here, which is sort of creating this random thing that's not really something you're supposed to pay that much attention to, but sort of makes the whole thing feel longer. Phasers do that because you can sort of set them to a slow rate, and they'll sort of generate this undulating frequency in the background. That's a bit too crazy, but it sounds pretty cool actually. Oh shit. I think so. I mean, I think one of the people that we were talking about was Trent Mahler. Trent Mahler does some things, particularly Into the Woods is a really good track for like a slower tempo for minimal techno. Daniel Avery also does like almost house level tempos. Yeah, so one of the main tenets I'm sort of thinking about right now is not overcrowding the space, the mix with things. Like, what are we paying attention to here? Maybe this upper line here, the like strange sounds, the bass line is a big part of it. I'm actually going to remove this rhythm and just kind of play with this a little bit. So I'm pretty happy with this rhythm here, and as with most times that I'm on the Octatrack, I come up with a really cool idea, and then I'm like, how do I actually create other variations on that? Hello, Mark Felix. Thank you for welcoming me back to this space. Talking about minimal techno production and sort of how do I build out patterns. Today, I'm really not trying to build a real structure here. I'm looking more at how can I set up a few different ideas and figure out what I'm going to do between them. And yes, Rogan, to respond to your question, do you tend to just set the heat to a good setting? Yes, I tend to just like put it on saturation. There's a lot you can do with the filter. So like I could have it just as like a high pass. One thing I like to do actually is just do a boost. I don't know where I thought of this or if somebody told me to do it, but I like to do a sort of a notch. Is it called notch? I think so. At, where is it? I mean, what's weird is that the frequency here is not listed as an actual frequency. It's just like a value. But you can kind of hear, I don't know if, depending on what kind of system you're listening to this on, this is either doing a lot for you or you can't tell what's happening. But it really just boosts the bass here. The thing is, though, we're working with minimal techno here, and I'm not really trying to make the kick stand out that much. So this actually feels a little better. I mean, maybe I might add a tiny bit, but I really don't want to push it. Have I ever tried to test to make a track where I just add new elements and try to keep them as quiet as possible, even though it's a new element / track? I think what you mean, I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, to some extent, I feel like, you know, if I do come up with an idea for a track in this genre, this sort of minimal techno thing, I'm more or less going to be doing something like this, where I take 6 tracks and I just kind of play with them as they're looping. That would be fun. I'm actually currently working on an ambient EP right now. I feel like I did this stream last year that was like kind of ambient stuff, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm sort of in the process of turning those into full-fledged tracks. A lot of nature sounds, a lot of OB6. As for minimal techno, sure, yeah, maybe. We'll see. But I do really like the simplicity of it and how it lets me play with this mixer, you know, in a performative way. Sorry, let me move this closer into the camera. Another bass sound coming from the Octatrack. Yeah, so that's kind of the fun part. I'll show you. I mute this bass here, and it just so happened that earlier when we were playing with track 5, I set it to a particular setting on the modulation frequency that just kind of resonated and sounds kind of like the same note as the bass line here. So we only have one track playing right now, track 5. And I'm surprised at how much the hi-hat, oh, it's because one tip to keep in mind is with this sample rate here, the more I adjust sample rate up, the more these sort of like higher frequencies start to get lost. So there's a little more crunch that you can hear in the upper end without it. Although there actually isn't all that much, to be honest. I think it's because, yeah, it's kind of lost in this as well. of course, you don't want it to sort of fight for the dominant position in the kick hierarchy here. So you want to put that one, you want to roll a little bit off of that, so you know which one is actually sort of taking the center stage here. And what's fun too is I could have just like triggered the actual note instead of fading it up. I think that would be stronger in some ways. Yeah, and one thing that's really fun is even if you have a loop like this on track 4, and obviously I'm talking about if I have something like a fader fox, but also, you know, if I have a loop on track 4 here, which is kind of like this more active, even if it's just one bar. This is called the Fader Fox PC4. It doesn't matter if it's too repetitive, because maybe I just bring it in when I want to break, or sorry, like a fill of some kind. As I've kind of been demonstrating already, but so 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. Oh, shit. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4. And then you're back, right? So you can just use that for the moments where you need some kind of a fill. And maybe over time, as if I make more minimal techno, or if I was working with this setup more, I would start to treat track 4 as though that's where I put the fills. That way, you know, less brain space spent on thinking about what is this track doing. I can just keep it muted and know that anytime I let in track 4, it's some kind of fill. So we're gonna move to another pattern and just kind of mess around until I find something interesting, and maybe something related, we'll see. Yeah, and what's kind of cool about what you're saying, Nick, is you could even have, 6 or 8 or however many breaks or fills you want, and you could have a track that picks one of them at random. So instead of deciding what you're going to do, the Octatrack decides for you. So you don't even know what's going to happen when you turn this knob, but you know it's going to work. The PC4 is controlling Octatrack parameters. Yes, I've controlled it so that row 1 here, column 1, is controlling the volume. Column 2 is filters, which means I have to set filters to every single track I have. Filter low, filter high, more or less. And the last column is release. So that lets me adjust the hi-hat and the kick release here. So track 6 is kicked, for example. You can kind of hear it slowly shorten. Tempted to put a phaser on this as well. Oh shit. Yeah, one thing I kind of want to experiment with too is using a long LFO for adjusting the control of the frequency. So I've actually gone ahead and mapped this already. Basically what I'm doing is I looked at a sheet that talks about the CC parameters of these knobs, and I've mapped it to the CC in the Octatrack. I can now map an LFO to that CC. So I have a free one. I think I'm going to set it to hold. And I'm going to give it like a slow speed so that it's sort of slowly adjusting. But I'm also wondering if I should just randomize it. We'll see. You can hear the tail reset. And that's my least favorite thing about this whole LFO situation. It seems like it needs to reset at the 1 for some reason. Why don't we try some other samples here in this track 1? Yeah, I don't hear Blawan use a lot of vocal samples, so I'm gonna kind of skip ahead here. A little too musical. Let's go with noise. Noise. Maybe too literal. Hold on. This is why I tend to slow things down a little bit, because I find it gives you a little bit more room for the rhythms to line up in serendipitous ways. Or to just not have as much rhythm so that you can actually put the rhythm in there. Let's actually also change track 5's rhythm. We're just gonna pick a rhythm. I do have this randomer sample pack, but it is pretty out of control. This That's actually pretty cool too. Okay, let's simplify things a little bit. Yeah, so I wanted that to happen every other time. It's supposed to already. Oh, this is super blah one like. Little messy, but I just kind of wish it was a little less echoey. BRB. One way you can get rid of that kind of thing, echo, in the cases that you don't want it, is just by distorting the crap out of it. Let's see if that works. This loop is already pretty crazy on its own. It's kind of wild. So with something like this, we have a pretty wild loop and I'm feeling like there isn't enough to sort of latch on to. So in that event, I'm sort of trying to construct some things that might read as palatable. Honestly, I was actually Digifex. I was inspired by Surgeon's breakdown. He has a video that I think was sponsored by Resident Advisor where he talks about using the Fader Fox, and I was like, wow, that looks really helpful. So I picked one up like a few months later. And it has really proven to be a really great way to take an idea and make sure that it really sucks before you change it. To really kind of sculpt it and move around with it and see if there's anything that you might be missing. Because sometimes, you put two things together and your first response is like, oh, this doesn't work. But part of that is only because you haven't like sort of adjusted the pieces, and there's always, a little bit more you could do, especially with techno. And that's why I'm sort of trying to finagle this one sample here, because it does remind me of Blawan a little bit. So at least I have a call and response going on here between two Yeah, my OP1 is not exactly retired yet. It's actually sitting on the other side of the table right now. I'm trying to just sort of keep things simple at the moment. Usually I try to keep just one synth on the table that's in the rotation, just because I start to lose focus of what that instrument can do once I start involving more and more. So I like the idea that I could sort of like play with this on its own, and then later on, I think there's a ton of stuff that the OP1 can do for minimal techno in particular, which I haven't explored a lot, because usually I use it as a melodic tool and sort of playing chords quickly. But there are a lot of interesting synths, like the digital synth on there is super interesting. I'd find that there's a lot of notes that there's a lot of designs I make on there that just don't work as conventional, instruments. But in a context like this, where kind of anything goes, I think you could find some really interesting spaces for them. So I'm going to try looking for a partner for this kind of lower thing, because I do like this lower aspect of it. that I'm sort of bringing in the second halves, but I don't feel quite as good about this part. Ooh, that was cool. Hold on. That one's really cool too, actually. I like that. Hold on. Wow, that was surprisingly rhythmic. I'm also tempted to play with claps, but I just know I'm not gonna like them to some extent. I feel like one thing with techno, I'm like, I can keep claps in the sort of the house realm, but I start to get a little wary of techno claps because I feel like it starts to feel a little bit too dance prescriptive. But I think that could have some good ideas in there. Oh man, even just that one note sounds great. Hold on. I'll make it shorter. That's fun. I mean, this kind of sounds like a muffled tom, right? Just a really really ratty tom. Sorry, things are gonna get messy because I have part 3 here, part 4 here. This is what always happens. Part 4, 3, 3, 4, 4, and then 3 again. So this idea, particularly the idea that has a clap in it, there's something there that I really want to explore. So we're just gonna go to copy it to 2. And then explore it on 2 here. Track 9, or sorry, pattern 9. Actually, yeah, I don't want to explore this this kick pattern. I feel like I'm getting too far away. Oh, this is from a Clark album. I can't use this stuff. Hold on. I downloaded a set of stems from something Clark made, so let's keep away from those. Yeah. Yeah, this is a this was a bass line of some kind that I made on the iPad, I think, a long time ago. I think I'm quickly leaving the territory of minimal here. How do we make this minimal again? Okay, let's turn things down. So far, so good. It's really just this loop is so out of control. And you know what? I also blame the hi-hat snare switch up because honestly, I feel like that does something to the way this beat feels, and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm just making it up. I think also one thing I need to do maybe is play with honestly this is, well, okay. Let's take this one out and see what one sounds like. Oh yeah, that was really cool. I forgot about that. That was pretty sick. Okay, yeah, so maybe this one just does a little too much, but it just sounds so cool. Okay, in the spirit of keeping all the cool ideas, we'll make one for this. We'll take this one out. does it make sense to alternate these? Nope, I changed my mind again. It's just too big. That's doable. Yeah, that's fun. Okay, so basically what I did was I set 2 trigs here, and the second trig is playing every second time. So you have the first one. Actually, it's playing the first time and then not playing the second time. So yeah, so now I have this bass line set up so it only plays the second half. Now I have to tune it. Okay, pattern 2, or pattern 10. I'm actually kind of into that too. Yeah, I'm sort of struggling to figure out what is the missing piece here. Maybe I should just sort of. Let's try the hi-hat situation again. We're getting somewhere. Oh no. I just cleared part 2. No. Can I reload them? Nope. Part 2's gone forever. Maybe I could. Well, that's too bad. These are the kinds of forces that you're dealing with when you use an Octatrack. But yeah, I don't know. I've come up with a number of different ideas here today. which I feel pretty good about. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of other things that I can explore. I think the main goal is to almost treat each of these patterns as though it's a self-contained song. So maybe like, and I've kind of explored this idea in the past, but basically, you know, you have 4 parts per bank. So what if I were to treat every 4 patterns as though it held its own track? So what would be contained in 4 patterns that would make sense for a full track? I don't think I would give those patterns something as simple to deal with as like no kick here or just the hi-hat part. Like it would be something more elaborate in terms of like, oh, this is actually like a B section, or this is a break, or this is some kind of like an instrumental, or this is a part where the beat does lift, but melodically and sample-wise, there's a whole shift in what's happening. And then you sort of have a transition into another one of those 4 patterns. And I'm sort of speaking out loud here to sort of help speak this idea into existence, because sometimes I forget about this. But I think having patterns 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 through 16, representing their own songs, and then maybe those 4 sort of belonging to a similar world, is a helpful way to think about constructing ideas. Say, maybe for this EasyBot compilation that I'm thinking about, I'm just going to dedicate 1 bank to that. And basically pattern 1 on each of these is a separate idea, and the following 4 patterns are elaborations on that idea. So eventually, if I want to perform one of them, I could just start with 1, 5, 9, or 13, and just kind of use these reliably, these knobs, to construct some kind of an experience that then gets recorded into a track. So that's kind of what I'm going to explore. Probably again next week. We're going to just say that I'm going to try this every Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. PST as before, but just on Tuesdays. And I'm just going to try to build 4 main ideas and maybe ship 1 at the end of this process. Maybe 4. Maybe I'll come up with 4 and make an EP, but I'm not going to make any promises. It sounds like I'm sort of... Yeah, like I'm really dying to make this track 1 thing work. I just haven't quite done it yet. And there are some other tracks that this makes me think of. Yalisa Hall comes to mind, if anybody's listened to Yalisa Hall. But that would not fall under the category of minimal techno, as far as I know. It's quite hard. And I did notice that as I was sort of creating this, I was sort of losing track of that aspect of it, because some of the way that the samples sounded was sort of starting to shape it. If you go back to the beginning of this stream, there's a very clear idea of what I was thinking of doing, and then over time the Octatrack starts to sort of take over and do what it wants, which is to just kind of surprise you and move you in a direction that you never expected. So I think next time I'm just going to focus on building out some more specific ideas. We might find that when I come back on Tuesday, I actually have some ideas that I've been working on over the past week. I think that's probably going to happen. I'm just going to keep revisiting this, but hopefully by then I'll have some things to share with you in terms of insights. But thanks again for dropping by and welcoming me back. It's been really cool to see how quickly people were ready to check this video out and stuff. So I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday next week. Cheers.